Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to a $700 gaming PC build. It's been quite a bit since I've done my last PC build, over 3 weeks, I believe, so that's very odd for me. Usually I get these out, every 3 to 4 days I try to put out a build video. I really don't have any excuses for you guys this time around. I've been going on these lengthy breaks a lot recently, so sorry about that. Hopefully in the near future I can get that worked out, but hey, with that being said, let's get right into this video. Starting things off with the CPU, I went with the AMD FX 6300 Vishera 3.5 GHz, 4.1 GHz turbo, socket AM3 Plus 95 watt 6-core desktop processor. Now this is about $120. You can actually find it cheaper on sale some places for $110, and I've seen it as low as $90, believe it or not. But that was back in fall during Black Friday week. So you guys are probably going to be able to find this for around $110 to $120 right now. That's a really good price for a pretty decent CPU. Obviously, it's clocked at 3.5 GHz, so pretty fast, and 4.1 gigahertz turbo. This is 6 cores, 6 physical cores, unlike the i3, which is 2 physical and 2 virtual cores. The 6 physical cores are going to help a lot in things like video editing, rendering, live streaming, and things of that nature, which is honestly a big reason why people are coming to PC gaming, because of things like video editing and rendering. So that's a nice thing to have if you are on a budget. Obviously, this is a $120 CPU, so you can't expect everything out of it, but it is definitely no slouch when it comes to things other than gaming. Now, gaming performance is absolutely phenomenal with a decent graphics card. It's 6 cores, 3.5 gigahertz. Obviously, it's going to be able to pretty much run any game with a decent graphics card. And with more and more games in the new generation utilizing the more than 4 core technology, that being 6 and 8 cores, the 6 cores is coming more and more handy in games like Battlefield 4, Watch Dogs, and things of that nature, Lord of the Rings, Shadows of Mordor. So games coming out are going to utilize more than 4 cores, so that's going to get more performance out of the 6300 as far as gaming is concerned. So for about $110, there's really no other route to go with. FX 6300 just made a lot of sense, and yeah, pretty decent option for this build. Now for the motherboard, I went with the Asus M5 A97LE-R2O. This is an AM3 Plus motherboard, AMD 970. Pretty solid motherboard for about $73 after a mail-in rebate. This isn't going to do anything fancy. You're not going to be able to SLI or Crossfire with this, but, that's not something I'm a really big fond of. So, and I've explained that several times, so someone in the comments, if someone does ask, just reply to them. I'm sure some of you guys know why I'm not fond of SLIing or Crossfiring, but that's besides the point. This is a really solid motherboard. It has 4 RAM slots, so upgradability options are there as far as RAM is concerned, and it's got pretty much everything you need, and it's from Asus. They have a pretty decent warranty policy, which is something you really want with motherboards, because other than hard drives, motherboards is probably the most faulty component that I've seen in PCs. At least in my experience, motherboards are the things that, are come DOA, so, you want to make sure that you have a motherboard with a decent warranty policy, and Asus takes care of you really well, so I think this motherboard is a very good option to go with. Also has UEFI BIOS, and overall for $73 after a mail-in rebate, it's just a great motherboard, highly recommended by me. Moving on to the RAM, I went with the G.Skill Ripjaws X Series 8GB, 2 4GB sticks running at 1866 MHz. About $80. Yes, it's expensive, but it's 8GB of RAM, pretty much paying $10 for a gig, which in reality, it doesn't sound too bad. $10 for a gig of RAM doesn't sound all that bad. $80 is expensive, though. This same kit of RAM was about $45 a year and a half ago, so just, to contrast the prices a little bit. RAM prices have just been going up over the years, so that's unfortunate, but hey, this is a pretty solid kit of RAM that I highly recommend. It's G.Skill. No reason to go with 12 or 16 gigabytes right now, but like I said, the motherboard does have 4 RAM slots, so you can have the upgradability option to go to 12 or 16 gigabytes in the future, but right now it just doesn't make a lot of sense, since 8 gigabytes is the standard, and it's going to be the standard for years to come, and, getting 12 or 16 gigabytes in this kind of budget really doesn't make any sense at all. Alright, next for the graphics card, I went with the MSI R9 270X. Yes, finally, the Radeon series of R7, R9 graphics cards have come down in price. The R9 270X is now back down at $220, which is a fairly solid deal for this graphics card. If you guys remember, the Bitcoining and mining craze brought these graphics cards prices up to an extreme degree. This same graphics card was about $330, and at that price point, you really can't recommend this at all if you're just buying it for gaming. But at $220, the R9 270X is a definite winner. pretty much can run any game at 1080p with, solid frame rates, not 60 locked, but if you tweak the settings, you can get 60 frames per second. At max settings on most games like Battlefield 4, Witcher 2, high-end games like that, you're going to be looking at 30 to 45 frames per second at 1080p. So that's fairly good in my opinion. That's playable. And like always, you can edit the settings, resolution, things of that nature to get 60 frames per second if you're the kind of guy that loves, performance over graphical fidelity. But yeah, great thing to see that these graphics cards have come down in price. I mean, it's been a long time coming. It's been about, 4 to 6 months that these graphics cards have been overly priced. So good to see the R9 270X back to $220. And all the other graphics cards are also coming down in price, so that's great. All of you guys that are building new PCs can finally get AMD graphics cards again, at this price point, because it really didn't seem viable to pick up an R9 270X for $330 if you live in the States. Next, for the power supply, I went with the XFX Core Edition Pro 650-watt power supply. This is $80 after a $10 mail-in rebate. Really solid power supply. It's going to power the build, no problem. The AMD FX 300 is very power efficient at 95 watts, and the MSI R9 270X is also pretty power efficient, and everything else in the build is not going to accumulate to 650 watts by far. You're going to have some upgradability, room for, as far as wattage is concerned. So 650 watts seem logical. This is 80 plus certified, bronze certified that is, and for $80 this seemed like a pretty good route to go with. Going to power the build, no problem, and it's going to give you some extra wattage to spare if you want to add things like hard drives, things of that nature. You're going to have the ability to do that in the future. For the hard drive, I went with the Western Digital WD Blue 1TB. It's a 1TB hard drive for $60. Pretty solid price for a terabyte of space. No SSD in this build, obviously, because $700. It doesn't seem really logical to spend $100 of that $700 budget on an SSD. So we opted with just a hard drive in this build. So 1 terabyte is going to be good for this build. Don't be afraid to get even a 2 terabyte or 3 terabyte drive in the future, because a lot of the next generation titles like Titanfall and Battlefield 4 use a lot of space from the hard drive. A game like Titanfall is 50 gigabytes, and that game still has DLC coming out. Same thing with Battlefield 4. That game's 30 gigabytes and it's got a lot of DLC packs coming out. So by the time Battlefield 4 is, done with all the downloadable content, and if you're the guy that did buy all the DLC, you're looking at, a 45, 50 gigabyte game as well. So, hard drive space, I would definitely recommend getting a 2 or 3 terabyte drive. A terabyte's still fine, but you're gonna have to be limited. I used to run just a terabyte drive a couple years back, and I was actually pretty limited because I'm not the kind of guy that likes to delete games. For some reason, I just like having all my games installed. You might be different, where you beat a game, you're probably not gonna go back to it and you uninstall it. To each our own, but don't be afraid to get a 2 or 3 terabyte drive in the future is all I'm saying, because of the expanding size of next generation titles. Expect a game like Witcher 3, that game's probably going to be 45, 50 gigabytes because of how expansive that game is. Finally, for the case, I went with the Cooler Master Half 912. Solid mid-tower case. I've recommended this case several times, and I run this case myself, and I have a lot of good things to say about it. I've said it several times, so I'm not gonna go in depth on this case. It has a lot of good ventilation, and it's gonna fit all the parts, no problem. And you're gonna have a lot of upgradability options as well. Has a hard drive bay that you can also remove to get even more space. So great case for $50 after a mail-in rebate. Really seemed the route to go. So this build comes out to about $721. After mail-in rebate, it actually comes out to about $665. So yeah, pretty cheap build in my opinion. Not as cheap as a console, but you're definitely going to be getting better performance on this PC than a console. So thanks for watching this video, guys. Remember to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.